Okay, I've done some cleaning now. As you can see, it looks much better. After cleaning, I did notice some wear points. You can see here, this is where the safety mechanism has been rubbing, and there's a little bit of a dent there. So I'll dress that out with a fine stone, smooth that off. If any of you are curious as to how this mechanism works, this is your firing pin. This lays in the bolt mechanism like so. That's how it sits. When you cock the weapon, this slide is your actual hammer. This is held back by the trigger mechanism. The round is held in here with the pin back. And as you can see, it slightly protrudes. I don't know if you can see that very well here. Protrudes out the back side a little bit. And so when you pull the trigger, this hammer is released, hits the mechanism, drives it forward, and then that drives the pin forward, hitting the edge of the rimfire cartridge. Cartridge is nitrocellulose filled, impact sensitive, and that's enough to set the round off. The little clip you see is the extractor. That hooks on the back of the cartridge, and when this breech then travels rearwards, it pulls the cartridge out of the barrel, and then the spring action lets it snap out. It's important that that's in good shape, intact, and of course moves freely. Usually what happens is this channel gets full of powder residue. Being a semi-auto, there is some of the charge release when this bolt is sent rearwards, and it does gum up. So it's important that all those grooves are nice and clean, as you can see here. Another thing I did notice on the trigger mechanism, you can just see it here. Good light here. There's a tiny groove on the release mechanism just here, and that is where, from the action, is when the bolt gets sent back, this catches it, and then when you pull the trigger, that drops and releases the bolt again. A very fine edge has been worn in. You can just see it there. That's a danger issue. If that does not hold the bolt will be released forward again. You will literally have a full automatic. So I'm going to take a fine file and I'm going to dress that. So you can see it should be vertical to the mechanism, maybe with an ever so slight back cut on an angle of that direction, this way, so that it catches on the back of the bolt. You can see on the bolt there's a machine step here in this area right here. That is what this piece hooks onto. So it kind of sits in the weapon this way. Bring it lined up here for you, and that's how she kind of sits in the weapon. And when the bolt slides back, I'm moving the whole breech, but actually what happens is this spring part slides. It then catches on the edge like thusly. When you pull the trigger, it drops and releases the bolt forward. So it's important that this area catches safely. So I'm going to dress that out. I'm going to dress this mark off, and then we will proceed to further reassembly. Okay, for those of you that are interested in what the difference is between the old receiver and the new receiver, I'll get all my pieces together here for you. Okay, the old receiver has, as you can see, there's like a notch, two tangs, broken of course. Now, here is the clip, and here's the guide, and the way it works is it slides in so, and then snaps in, and then that is what holds it in the right place into the rifle, so that I can discharge the munitions into the receiver. But because one side is broken off here, it's quite useless, and this can rock, and a little bit of misalignment and it'll jam. The old barrel retainer at this end, you can just see it has been machined out. That is the guide for the round up into the barrel. The new receiver has the guide machined in the end of it. So hence, we have a new retaining clip without the machined guide. And that would sit in the rifle as so and be bolted up. And held in place. Okay, here we're back. I have filed the catch down with an ever so slight back cut. You can see that here. I had to take off almost 1/32 of an inch to get it in the right shape. So now we can be quite sure that it will hold the bolt back without any chance of accidental misfire. That should be good for another 1,000 rounds. Okay, so we've cleaned most of the stuff up. Everything looks much better now. Very little wear overall. Some of the bluing is worn off on moving parts, but nothing really to be too concerned about. I could re-blue it this time, but I've chosen just to not do that. Maybe down the road. We're taking her up to the range and seeing how it'll fire. If I'm happy, then I'll dress it out some more and blue it up. Okay, for the mark on the bolt, which is not really that much, we'll take a little jeweler's file and then take off just the high points. Okay, that's all that we need. There's still a slight dent, but we've taken off the burrs and smoothed out the surface. Because you can always take a little bit more off, but you can't add it back on. And there, of course, is the hallmark image for the manufacturer. It appears to be like an L and an X. Okay, let's put her together.